Good morning. The title that we have for our sermon today is called Courage. I'm going to do something, but this is a parental and kids advisement. What I'm fixing to show you didn't really happen. It's all make-believe and imaginary. So kids, do not do what I'm fixing to show you, okay? So I just want to let you know it's all make-believe, all right? All right? The other day, I was out in the yard, and I go and I get my handy little pocket knife, and I go out in the yard, and there's a raccoon out in the yard. So what do? I run up there, and I cut the tail off the little raccoon. Woo-wee. Boy, that took a lot of courage, didn't it, to go and cut the tail off the raccoon. Someone said, well, if you really wanted to be courage, you should have cut the head off. Guess what? Somebody beat me to it. Get it? You understand? If I ran up to the raccoon, it was already dead, and I cut the tail off the raccoon. So I couldn't cut the head off because somebody already beat me to it. Oh, that's funny. There was also a leader. His name was Joseph Stalin. He was a really bad guy. He killed a lot of his generals in the military in Russia. And whenever he died, the next ruler was Nikita Khrushchev. And while Nikita Khrushchev gave a speech, an announcement, he started saying, well, how bad Stalin was and the things that he did wrong. Somebody out in the crowd yelled, well, you were there, why didn't you speak up and say something? And he looked out in the crowd and said, who said that? There was a silence out in the crowd. And then Nikita Khrushchev said, now you know how I felt. If he had made a statement, someone else spoke up, but they didn't want to speak up for themselves. They were willing to be silent in the crowd. Courage. What is courage? We're going to take a look at it, at some of the things on courage. Defining what courage is, it's the ability to do something that frightens one. Strength in the face of pain or grief. This right here is a picture of 9/11. Happened September 1st, the 1st of September, 2001. This right here changed my entire career with the federal government. There were 4 planes that were hijacked. 2 flew into the World Trade Center. One on one and the other one on the other. Another one flew into the Pentagon. And a 4th one never made its destination because the people that were on the 4th plane had the courage to say, this isn't going to happen. And they all died, knowing what they faced before them. I can remember going down, I worked at a federal building in Jacksonville. There was only one TV in the building. It was down on the 1st floor in our walk-in office. And a couple of us ran downstairs to take a look at the TV to see what was going on, CNN. And as we were down there, we saw the 2nd plane fly into the 2nd World Trade Center. And the one guy with me says, this was not an accident. We are under attack. And we took steps to protect what other government assets were there, and then everybody went home. But like I said, that is, to me, what courage is about. Knowing what lies ahead, but still doing it anyway. Here, the reading that Landon did for you this morning is found in Luke chapter 18, verse 31 to 33. It says, Jesus took the 12 aside and told them, we are going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written by the prophets about the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He will be delivered over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, insult him, and spit on him. They will flog him and kill him. On the third day, he will rise again. Think about Jesus going to Jerusalem, knowing what lies ahead of him, knowing that he's going to be crucified, mocked, spit upon, but yet he still went. But he knows that it was done for a purpose, because he will rise again, knowing that. Today we're going to look at 3 things about courage. Courage is do it anyway, own up, and finally take a stand. Let's take a look at the first one, do it anyway. Luke chapter 9, verse 23 to 24. It says, Then Jesus said to them all, Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and daily follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it. But whoever loses their life for me will save it. Do it anyway. Jesus says, if you want to be my disciple, you must deny themselves and take up his cross. Then Luke chapter 14 to 28 to 30, it says, Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? For if you lay the foundation and not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, This person began to build and wasn't able to finish. Doing it anyway. Part of courage is sitting down, figuring out what that cost is going to take, knowing what it's going to take to be a disciple of Christ, and doing it anyway. Counting the cost of doing the right thing, then do it anyway. Being a Christian is not easy. Doing the right thing doesn't always end in praise. Think about Daniel in the lion's den. He was supposed to worship Nebuchadnezzar, but he wasn't going to do that. Got caught. Got put in the lion's den. Peter was crucified. But instead of being crucified, he was crucified upside down because he didn't feel that he was, I would say, worthy of being crucified the same way that Christ was crucified. The Apostle Paul was beheaded. Joseph was sold in slavery by his brothers. Think about that process. His 10 brothers ganged up on him because he was, quote unquote, the favorite. Sold into slavery. And then later on he was put in prison because Potiphar's wife, the wife of one of the Egyptians, wanted Joseph to sleep with him, and he refused. So she faked that he raped her, and he was put in prison for it. Forgotten about until later. Doing the right thing doesn't always end in praise. John chapter 15 verse 20 says, Remember the word that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they kept my word, they will also keep yours. Think about that if Christ was persecuted to the point of death on the cross, being a Christian, what type of persecution are you going to face as an individual? You're no better than the master. Counting the cost of being a Christian. Second thing that we want to look at is owning up. John chapter 21, verse 15 to 17 says, When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? He said to him, Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, feed my lambs. He said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. He said to him, again, tend to my sheep. Thirdly, then he said to him the third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And he said to him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. Jesus said to him, feed my sheep. Owning up is here Jesus pointing out to Peter that during a moment in his life, he had the ability to own up, to be considered a disciple of Christ. But yet, he denied Christ 3 times. And Peter said, no way is this ever going to happen. Peter said, there is just no way I will die for you, then deny you 3 times. But yet, what did happen? Peter, in the moment that he could have said, yes, I am one of his disciples, denied Christ just not once, but 3 times, as the Lord had told him that he would do. But Peter just didn't, he went away sorrowful. But more than that, he didn't give up. He owned up to the thing. And Jesus here points out the 3 times whenever he asks, do you love me? Do you care about me? And his final statement says, you know everything. There's not a part of me that you don't know about. 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 11. Luke alone is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you. He is very useful for me for ministry. This Mark that Paul here is talking about is the person whenever Paul and Barnabas went out on their first missionary journey. They took Mark with them, John Mark with them. And in the middle of this first missionary journey, Mark left and went back home. Don't really know what the reason is, why he went back home, either homesick, couldn't count the cost of what it would take to be a disciple of Christ, being out there in the world. That first missionary journey by Paul was a very tough one and difficult time. Saying, I just can't do it. Whenever the second missionary comes around, Barnabas wants to take Mark with him again. Paul said, no way is this going to happen. Just no way. So what does Paul do? Him and Silas go a different route, and Barnabas and Mark go a different route. But still, Paul, throughout his journey and in his life, realized how important Mark was to him as an individual whenever he writes here to get Mark, because he finds that it's profitable for him. Mark, who was one of the persons that wrote one of the 4 epistles. Owning up takes courage. Own up for our needs for forgiveness. Own up for our inability to reconcile on our own. And own up to our failures and to his perfection. Each and every one of us, me as even an individual, I'm not perfect. As a husband, as a father, I make mistakes. I make some pretty bad mistakes. You know, owning up to those mistakes is part of life, and taking responsibility, especially the need for forgiveness and a request for forgiveness. Finally, taking a stand. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 10 to 13. Paul says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the scheme of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic power over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. And having done all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. Paul says, as far as words of encouragement, that we're to be strong in the Lord, that we're to make a stand. But there's also things here that are for us to realize that our struggle is partly within and also partly outside these doors. Some of it we can see, some of it we can't see. Evil is out there. It's not that far. But we have to be rest assured by taking a stand. How do we do this? Putting on the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness. It's the Word of God that we have, that we use daily to help to fight the foe that's out there. Luke 18, verse 31 to 34. Again, Jesus says, in taking the 12, he said to them, see, we're going up to Jerusalem, and everything that is written about the Son of Man, the prophet, will be accomplished. For he will be delivered over to the Gentiles, and will be mocked and shamefully treated, spit upon, and after flogging him, they will kill him, and on the third day he will rise. But they understood none of these things. This was hidden from them, and they did not grasp what was said. That last statement, the disciples always felt that Christ would establish his kingdom here on this earth. They thought that he was going to be an earthly king, someone that kingdom was going to be here. They were going to overthrow the Roman Empire, and they were going to set up the kingdom right here, right now. But Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this earth. And again, these disciples, they were with Jesus for up to 3 years, seeing numerous miracles, but still didn't understand. We haven't seen Jesus. We haven't been part of his ministry that he did. Sometimes we see, but also too, we don't understand. Luke chapter 22, verse 41 to 44. And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and prayed, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him. And being in agony, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. Think about Christ there in the Garden of Gethsemane, going to his Father and asking him, Lord, Dad, can you take this pain that I'm fixing to do and make it go away? Jesus said, but not my will, but your will. Jesus took a stand. Great courage is our example here. Think about worrying so much and being so concerned and the agony that the sweat coming from somebody looks like drops of blood. That's a lot of pressure on an individual. The three things: do it anyway, owning up, take a stand. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 7 to 10. It says, "But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that the surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed, always carrying in the body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may be manifested in our bodies." Paul here says that we have a treasure in a jar of clay. It's not really a jar that you think of that's outside. That jar that Paul is talking about is our body. Here. It's within us. To show that this jar of clay doesn't belong to us. It belongs to God. It's also to show that we're afflicted, but not crushed. Things in life are bad. And sometimes in life, bad things happen. But we have to realize that pain that we bear and that we have to go through is temporal. Perplexed, but not driven to despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. We're here to make manifest that Jesus died for you. Jesus died for me. He died for the sins of the entire world. Knowing that, he did it anyway. He owned up and he took a stand. Reminds me of the song of Casting Crowns. I don't know if y'all, probably, the younger people probably would know about Casting Crowns. There's a song out there that they sing about courageous. It's titled The Name. It says, "Where are you men of courage?" In the last part of the song, the refrain goes, "Seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God." All three of these things were to seek justice, but love mercy. Standing before God, that's what I want, is mercy. Each and every week that we gather together, we remind ourselves, what does it take to be a Christian? It takes to be buried with Christ in the watery grave of baptism, to be raised out of that watery grave a new person. Your life doesn't end there. That's only the beginning. The hard part is, what are you going to do with it from then on? Are you going to seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God? That's what it's going to take. It's a daily walk. It's a marathon. We have to fight through it. The invitation is also extended for those that have been buried with Christ, but they've forgotten about what does it mean for me to be a Christian, to owning up, to doing what is right, and taking that courage to do what's right. The time is always available until you die. But that invitation is, if you need prayers, we're here to do that. If there's anyone here this morning that's subject to that invitation, would you come forward as we stand and sing the song of invitation?